I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode 13. We are finally back. Yes, it's exciting. We got through the off season in that last episode, and here we are in season number 2. Non-modded. This is the actual database because they fixed the Sophia Flörsch situation where 2 years of eligibility gets you a potential F1 seat. She has those 2 years of eligibility, but when the game initially came out, you just couldn't sign her. But now that we went through season 1 and you count what she had previously, that is 2 seasons. They have fixed that, and we've been able to get her into a race seat. Now, her and Logan Sargent are the 2 weakest drivers on the grid. Driver 19 and driver 20. But Logan Sargent is far closer to the rest of the field as of right now. There is not a second driver. Frank Agata has not gotten an F3 seat as of yet, and therefore we are planning on sticking with a Logan Sargent to help keep us competitive, keep us in our job for the next couple of years while we bring Sophia Flörsch along. But let's go ahead and get into our first race weekend. We seem to have built a car that's a little bit better, a little more competitive, potentially where we left off at. But again, with a weak lineup, what can it do? We know that Sophia Flörsch is definitely going to be off the pace. But where will Logan Sargent fit in at? Can we be assured of that 8th place? Can I back off a little bit on the car itself, focus more on the infrastructure so that we can get Flörsch to develop and set ourselves up for the long-term gains of the save? Because this is not going to happen this year. The goal, the objective, is not to get Logan Sargent to win a championship. It's to get Flörsch. And that's a much longer-term objective. He's there to help keep us in place.
As we start a brand new season, the slate is wiped clean. And all 20 drivers prepare to make an instant impact ahead of an exciting year. Bahrain is known for high tyre degradation, as the asphalt here is so abrasive. The drivers are facing many low to medium speed corners, and any heavy braking will inevitably take its toll on the tyres. Mercedes will be giving a shot to new talent this weekend, but the question is, can they compete with the old hands?
Entering the new season, of course, brand new engine, ERS, gearbox, all of that. That makes perfect sense, but we've already managed to get 4 upgrades on to the car. Not just, about the development cycle, but enough to get manufacturing of 4 upgrades on both cars before we start this first race weekend. That's a pretty good start, and those upgrades are what's really kind of propelled us from, we were about neutral in the offseason to, hey, we are making some gains. We're still at the back of the grid in all but one area, that being high-speed cornering, but we're not last anywhere. Qualifying is definitely not the be-all, end-all of a car's pace. Driver influence, track factors, various things are going to alter the outcome. However, it's obviously a pretty good indicator. If a car is on pole, it's either the fastest or very close to being the fastest. So Red Bull, with a 1-2 and leading all 3 sessions, suggests that they've got the quickest car right now, which is a little strange considering how Ferrari had the advantage, seemed to have backed off at the end of the season with Red Bull gaining, which meant Red Bull was probably not focused as much on this year's car. Yet, here they are at the top of the grid to start the season. Mercedes, with George Russell, is 3rd. The Aston Martins are right behind that. Then the Ferraris, one of the McLarens, and the Alpines. Hamilton way down the order. You figure that's a little bit of a fluke in how that one turned out. Oh my, we're talking about a significant gap, by the way. We're looking at a good 6 to 8 tenths from the Red Bulls back to everybody else, and then it gets fairly close. Okay, so that's a big indicator. The field starts to get tight after we've got one very dominant team here at the start of the season, or at least for this track. Haas just missing Q3, so they seem to be about 6th right now with your kind of holdovers. Or is that 7th already by that point? I guess that would be 7th. We do seem to be about 8th here with Sargent. Sargent a good few tenths of a second to half a second ahead of each of the Alpha Tauris, each of the Alfa Romeos. So we are once again at the start of the year ahead of the Alphas. Now, of course, the indicator is going to be what can Florsch do. You can see her time behind me here. It's a 1:33.551. That is 1.3 seconds off the pace, nearly 2 seconds behind her teammates' time in Q1. We got a lot of ground to cover. One thing about last season that I fully intend on carrying through in this season is cost savings where we can. All we need is Logan Sargent to be ahead of those 1 to 2 teams to keep our job. We don't have to be overly aggressive. We are definitely not competing for anything major. So in the case of Florsch, extreme cost savings. She's way off the pace. We just need to get her experience behind the wheel to develop as a driver to eventually be competitive. Having a competitive car will help with that. But in the meantime, not wasting money on new engines, gearboxes, ERS, constantly, hopefully avoiding crashes. That's going to be a big task for that one. Driving alone, not being in battles with other drivers will certainly help with that, help keep down the number of racing incidents that are potential. But under fueling to keep the engine, not having to turn it up, right? When you under fuel, the car is lighter, and therefore you are shaving off time on laps. You can't push though. So the push allows you to make overtakes and things of that nature. Sargent, we'll see how things are going in these early races, whether I want to adjust him a little bit. Obviously, getting the points once or twice this season should do enough to secure our 8th place. But the underfueling is going to be one of those key strategies to try to help with the longevity of our engine components to ultimately be able to reinvest that money savings into other areas.
Here in Sakir, the floodlights are on, and it's nearly time for 57 laps around the Bahrain International Circuit. And as the cameras turn to the Williams driver, you have to wonder what they can manage here.
P20 is definitely not where any driver would want to find themselves. But they've got to get their head down and work hard.
And the time has come. Let's go racing. And this is it, the Bahrain Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Red Bull slow off the line. Russell really good off the line there. And we are racing here. You see straight away that Florsch is a little slow, but big hold up here at turn 1. And we will focus our attention on Sargent for the time being, so as he's a little more competitive. Florsch closing that gap back down, but Bottas a little slow. Sargent gets ahead of Piastri off the line, so he's up into P14. And we are making that early push here. Florsch already losing some time here and there rather rapidly. You can tell she's really slow through some of the corners. Car that is fast through the high-speed turns, you would suspect that that's one place that we won't see much in terms of time losses, though, as Piastri gets up the inside here to finish up the first lap to put Sargent back in the position he started the race in, and that is 1 lap in the books. 1 lap of our season. Whole season ahead of us, a whole season with Florsch in the driver's seat without that modded database to impact things. Though the game is still a work in progress. The update that they put out now 2 days ago, they already immediately rolled back 1 of the upgrade elements with a further update 2 days later, and it was not further fixes, it was rolling back one of those changes having to do with. So Sargent now P15, and we are ready to settle in. It is that time. Florsch, meanwhile, not too far behind right now, 1.5 seconds behind Zhou. Sargent nearly falls out of DRS range, and then down the straight you can see that our DRS impact better than it used to be, as this time we actually are able to close a gap up a bit. Tire strategy is one of those things that could be an impact, as I went for an alternate strategy compared to others. And really is about half the field that has opted for that. So Perez on the softs gets the early lead ahead of his teammate Verstappen, dropping to that P2, but on the mediums he'll last longer and be faster. Strategy today, regardless, is going to be a medium and a too soft strategy. The abrasion leads to a lot of degradation. The hard compound is super slow compared to the others. Therefore, a two-stopper with one stint on mediums and two stints on softs is the way to go. Getting the mediums out of the way means you're going to be faster as the race goes on and hopefully can hold position. Right now, Sargent has dropped a position. We are following Albon, but he's on the softs. Sonoda's on the softs. Zhou's on the softs. So our main competitors, all but Bottas, have gone for the alternate strategy. We are slower right now. We're going to be faster than the last two stints, and they are going to go through a period of time where they are on the mediums, and therefore, if we can hang with them right now, and knowing that we will ultimately be quicker later on. Sargent getting a little bit of overheating, getting back within range now, though, and it's lap 8 of 57. Flourish definitely drifting back, but not crazy slow. It's certainly not 2 seconds a lap. 12 seconds behind Bottas is 1 second a lap off the back anyway. It's certainly better, and I think part of that has to do with that under-fueling. But the under-fueling element is our recovery is not happening too rapid right now. Therefore, we could expect to have to do some lift and coast later on. But again, that's good for energy, good for the life of our engine. Stroll setting a fastest lap. Alonso has gotten ahead of Verstappen and pulled away from him a little bit. No, I guess I'm still on leader. There you go. Flourish just 3 seconds behind. Did Piastri already stop? He did. Piastri just stopped. And other cars into the pits. Sargent temporarily up to P12. Flourish never leaving P20, but has yet to be lapped. Still has a little bit of a gap at least on Alonso, but unfortunately our pit window being open means we're going to be pitting relatively soon. So outlasting the leaders for a while when they pit and drop back isn't going to be much of a thing, actually. First time down pit road for the new season. The pit crew, of course, that big reset really put them off. But we made progress in December. We made progress in January. We did work hard, and our first pit stop of the year, 2.439. That is much better than where we started last year. So I do think we have successfully made progress with the pit crew. It's going to put us in a better position this year than we were a year ago, where we were the slowest or among the slowest. Our pit crew's still going to be off the pace, but progress, it's putting us in the right direction. We're a good 10th of a second ahead of last season at this point. So if we can continually gain about a 10th of a second a year comparatively, as long as the others are staying steady, I think we are eventually going to be the fastest pit crew. Eventually. It's going to take a number of years, but that's a good sign. We're going to keep an eye on lap times for a moment, as Sargent has, fallen back to that P19, but on the fresher compound compared to those around him, still light compared to those around him, he should be quicker than at least the group just ahead of him. Don't count Bottas in that. Bottas is 3 seconds a lap off the pace compared to Sargent. That is the pace difference right now of a used set of mediums versus brand new softs. Curious as to what our lap time will be this time around, as we've gotten up to speed here. Those ahead already fallen off a bit. They're mid 136s, mid 137s. That was a low 136, so definitely quicker, but we've got some ground to make up. Sonoda all the way up in P11. Not sure how he's quite managed to do that. Just a little more push. Come on. Wow, still not getting the job done? ERS should not be that important. Deploy. Go. You don't have the battery to really be doing this. This is really poor from Sargent. Really poor. The pace advantage. The pace advantage of the car. The pace advantage of the compound. This should have been a much easier job than should be in good shape to beat him. The big question is, Bottas. Right now is his advantage. Right now is where he can gain on us. It's not going to last for long. We'll be not only faster on the last stint when we start, but we'll be much faster at the end of the stint as well. So continually faster. So if he's not making up significant ground now, he won't make up the ground. But one factor that Sargent is going to have to deal with on this last stint, and actually I'm going to go ahead and start dealing with a bit right now, is the fuel. So we are going to give up some pace here for a while. At the moment, looks like we are destined to be a P9 in the constructors. Multiple cars have crashed. Hulkenberg involved.
2 secs. There's been a crash.
Hulkenberg has picked up the penalty, trying to overtake the Alpine.
Oh, and the car's there.
And it looks like right front wing clips the left rear. Not much there. That was Gasly. By the way, Florsch is the only one a lap down right now, and half a lap down at that, so certainly well off pace in her first race. From what I'm seeing with Bottas, I don't think the strategy call of trying to make a one-stopper work for Norris and Bottas is going to work out. So can a mistake by Piastri and a tactical mistake from Norris give us a chance to get ahead of the McLarens today? Probably not, but we'll see. Sargent, temporarily ahead of Tsunoda, who pits. Show down to 13th. Did he already pit? No, he's going backwards. Okay, so Zhou on the mediums this stint, and that early pit stop, Zhou is going backwards, and Tsunoda has already pit and on the mediums for the final stint. So that makes a lot of sense on how Tsunoda was so far up the grid. It was back-to-back softs and an early stop. Got him some track position, but he's going to be hanging on for dear life on this final stint. Let's go ahead and go balanced now for Florsch. Okay, yeah, let's do that now. Let's not prolong it anymore, the pace, especially down at 51%. And we're 5% below Florsch because of the used compound. They pit on the same lap. And then we saw that Florsch was 5% the other way when they started the same before. Norris just set a fastest lap, and boy, that pit stop was that was a handful of laps ago. Optimal pit stop, yes. So we head down pit road for the second time and final time in this race. We've had a nice clean race so far, and Sargent 2.451. Florsch is also going to be heading down pit road here in just a moment. Sargent comes back out in P18, 11 seconds ahead of Albon. So we've really left Albon behind. So that's one position secure. We are now 10 seconds behind Bottas, who we expect to not pit again, trying to make the one-stopper work, but we expect to have a pace advantage. 10 seconds is not going to be easy to cover off and make up. 2.439 on the stop for Florsch, and that's going to bring her out 53 seconds behind. 53 seconds. So here's where things stand on Florsch. In our first race, the car combined with her drive ability, and by the time she actually gets out there, she's a minute down. So 1 minute behind, 44 laps run. That means she's losing about 1.3 seconds per lap. Not on the front of the field, but on the back of the field. 1.3 seconds down is a lot. Combination of much improved car can make up plenty of ground, but she is going to have better pace. She's absolutely going to have better pace to compete. It's going to take a while to get that. It's definitely going to take a while to get that. That is well off the pace, but it's not insane when they try. And most of the time, they're not trying. To anyone with two eyes and a logical brain, you could see that the Red Bull is sandbagging all the flipping time. When they accidentally try, they end up a second and a half ahead of everybody. When they feel they need to put in a good lap because they put in a bad lap before, right? And they're nervous. The wet conditions the last handful of races have really seen the sudden out of nowhere lap, and it's always been off of the back of like they couldn't get a lap. They were making mistakes. They couldn't get a clean run in, and so it was like they know they need to put their foot down, and when they do, magically, at minimum, they're 9/10 ahead, or they're a second and a half ahead of everybody else. And it's like, where'd that lap come from? Wow, it was a magical lap. But when you watch the lap, even then, the lap still wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfectly clean. It wasn't the kind of lap that you go back and watch 7 years later and just go, wow, what a great lap. Y'all know who those laps came from, right? Yeah, it's a strange one, right? It's a really strange one when they magically put together a mediocre lap that's a second and a half faster than everybody else, but it was a lap that they needed at the time, and then all of a sudden it's like they're right back to those same second a lap slower situations. I really think that they are sandbagging intentionally to stop the FIA from stepping in, and all those artificial stuff that Perez is not P2 in the standing. It's so artificial. I think they're really pushing him down on purpose. Well, for one thing, that last race, the whole undercut your own teammate crap, that was just ridiculous. He's not that bad of a driver, but they're giving him a really bad car and intentionally stopping him from competing on a pretty regular basis. Anyway, Hulkenberg's still carrying a penalty here. Sargent is starting to close up on Magnussen and Bottas and Tsunoda and Piastri, but can he make up that sort of ground, especially when we still have just 10 laps and 1.9 kilograms of fuel to take care of? Let's take care of some of that. Now, being a lap down, that all helps. And in the case of Sargent, or in the case of Florish, that happened a long time ago, right? Albon is now a lap down. I don't think we're going to have to worry about it as much, but I really need to know kind of how much fuel there is in one lap. So we are going to, this time around, getting back on Sargent, start-finish line, we're going to take note of where we're at, how much fuel we go through in one lap, because Sargent is going to get lapped by Verstappen here pretty soon. All right, coming around the final corner, and let's go ahead and ride on board as we do that, and we are at 14.6 at the start of the lap. For me, that is easily one of the most difficult corners in all of the Formula One calendar. Yeah. Yes, I know we're not happy with fuel. That's why we are taking measure. We started the lap at 14.6. We are down to 13.5. Please don't blue flag and get out of the way of Verstappen just yet. Wait until the end of the lap, please, as that will very much mess with my count. There we go, down the straight. And that is one lap in the books, and it was 1.7 kilograms used over one lap. We're at minus 1.8, and we're about to be a lap down. We're going to be fine. We are going to be fine. Florish already is. It would actually be really nice if this adjusted after you go a lap down. As lap 53 just got underway, our 52nd lap, We're now just 2 seconds behind Bottas. And he has not lost significant ground, not yet, to the others. He's only 3.5 seconds behind that next group ahead. So Sargent is making that forward progress on this stint. But we are down to 72% now. So the pace advantage we have, as we are already within 1 second of Bottas, we're going to get him. And that means we're going to beat the Alfa Romeos. In fact, wow, look how easily we got him there. One DRS zone, and we overtake Bottas. So there's the Alfa Romeos behind Sargent. We will be 9th today. This is all 20 cars still racing. One race incident all day long. That's it. Ultimately, Tsunoda has fallen back. He is down to 13th, and this is his slower stint. Piastri is all over the back of him, so he's likely to drop to 14th. That's certainly a good thing for us, but we are not in position to beat the AlphaTauris today, though Sargent has made up that ground and is now just behind Zhou Guanyu. And let's see, where are we right now? Down the that middle backstretch, and we're gonna get him under the up the inside, that medium compound. You can see just how off the pace they are here in the final laps. And Sargent up to P16, 2.5 seconds behind Magnussen. Maybe, just maybe, we can get that one more, but Tsunoda is the only one that would matter. That would put us up to P8 for the day, and we're not going to catch him. Same with Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg, I'm guessing, is carrying a 5-second penalty, which actually does mean that, technically, we could maybe get ahead of the Haas today, as realistically, we're closer to beating the pair of Haas's than we are to beating the pair of AlphaTauris. 3 laps to go. 3 laps to go. 1.7... 3.4, 4. I feel like we're still a bit heavy or a bit light right now on the fuel. I am going to back off just a little bit. We have already pulled away from Zhou by nearly 4 seconds, so I'm nervous about us making the end of the race here. Florsch for that matter as well, but you can see Florsch, right, nearly a lap down, has the extra fuel, so and it's only 0.3 better off in terms of ratings, so it does not seem to be adjusting calculations. But I am nervous that at 3.1 we are not where we need to be. 2 laps to go now, though. 2 laps to go. Let's go back to neutral. I think we're okay. Yellow flag. We got a yellow. Somebody has made a mistake. Who is it? Tsunoda with the lockup. Tsunoda! The AlphaTauris are behind us! Okay. Last lap. Florsch just got lapped a second time. Yes, 2 laps down now. So the last lap is underway. We've cut the fuel. We're fine. We are fine. And Tsunoda, Bottas, Zhou, Albon, all behind us. We are 8th on the day. We can beat Hulkenberg. We're only 3 seconds behind Magnussen. Florsch getting out of the way of those two. Holding up Magnussen a little bit there. 2 seconds back. Nope. Didn't quite catch up. But one of them is carrying a penalty, and we were within 5 seconds. We should promote all the way to P14 for this opening race of the season. Also, Florsch manages to just stay ahead. That's her right there ahead of us. She goes just within 1 lap of her teammate. Confirmation of Hulkenberg's penalty dropping him to P15. So Magnussen and Sargent both promote ahead of Hulkenberg there at the end. So P14 in our first race is pretty dang good when by the end of that first stint it was, as we came out of the pits, it was not looking good as we were all the way down to P19. But the strategy does pay off and we ultimately get back up there. And after the mistake from Tsunoda, really gifted us what we needed to get that P8 on the day. But Florsch, slow. Her best lap was 2.5 seconds off the pace of Albon. Zhou Guanyu, though, only 0.4 behind. Just not the consistency. Hulkenberg, a 1:34.7 was his best, but did the one stopper. Bottas, Zhou Guanyu all did one stoppers. Verstappen with the pole position and the fastest lap bonus. each, so picking up 27 points in the opening race ahead of Perez. Red Bull take that early lead with maximum points. Aston Martin is second, Ferrari third, Mercedes fourth. Then comes the battle for the back end. I think Alpine and McLaren are going to be out of reach this season, but Haas, today anyway, did seem to be a bit off the pace. AlphaTauri do seem to be a bit faster than we are at this point. I think we are probably 9th quickest right now, or at least when you add in the impact of Logan Sargent being a bit weaker as a driver. We seem to be about 9th quickest, but we got 8th today. We almost are in reach of Haas. We're just about in reach of AlphaTauri, and Alfa Romeo seem to be a little slower. I think we can do what we need to do this season as long as we make some upgrades throughout the year to keep up where we're at right now. Pit stops are something we're going to pay a little bit closer attention to, and we were in the low 2.4s where Mercedes was 10th with Hamilton at a 2.386. We're not quite there, but we're not far off from the top 10. It's a more competitive pit stop time than what we were doing last year. We were always a 10th to 2/10ths off the pace of everybody else. Finances are definitely in better shape this year. Logan Sargent, his bonus to get him re-signed triggers at 14th or higher, and he managed to do that after he got promoted, even though it's showing 15th here, but appropriately he did lose, or we did lose the $14,000 to pay out for him. Flourish, her bonus kicks in at 15th or higher. I don't think, and it's only like 11K. Those are both very, very small amounts. They're not going to be a factor for us this season. What is a factor is a big increase in the sponsorship income race by race this season, where we are bringing in almost 3.5 million, where it was just 2.7 last season. So big increase in that one. That's going to help us improve our funding throughout the year a bit more rapidly. This is very confusing. Our objective was 8th this season, right? Now it says 7th. I thought our objective was 8th. I'm not sure how it's suddenly pushed to 7th. Could be wrong, but I was fairly certain our objective was once again 8th. That's a little bit of a concern for this season, as it's going to be tougher to meet objectives. We failed our objectives for last year, so that's already a negative on keeping the job long term. Finances are good. That's going to help offset that one, but the race performance becomes that much more important now to keep us in place. Beating Alfa Romeo is going to help, but that's only 9th. Beating AlphaTauri is going to help. That's only 8th. Now we have to beat the Haas as well. We are going to have to invest a bit more in the car to get it ahead of those two teams. That is concerning. That really is concerning for me. I don't know how that objective just pushed to 7th. One of the ways that I've helped make us faster is shaving off some weight on parts. We are the lightest car on the grid already. High-speed cornering is currently standing at 5th place. There's going to be some tracks where that's going to be a real advantage for us and could maybe put Sargent in a position to score some points for us this season, even if it's a small amount of them. But it feels like that's going to be necessary. I think Alpine is going to score a lot of points, very comfortable as a 4th team in the championship, which means the top 8 positions are going to be secured on a regular basis. Right now, it feels like McLaren is going to be a regular to get the 9th and 10th. Beating them on occasion or having a DNF from one of those top 5 teams is going to open that doorway. But who capitalizes on it? You would think Haas is in the strongest position to come in next. You would think AlphaTauri is certainly ahead of us right now to then come in at the right track. Maybe it can be us with some more development. Maybe it could be us more consistently and not just on some rare occasion. Feels like that's going to be necessary if we're going to get close enough to our goals this year to keep our job long term. I'm pretty nervous now about that sudden top 7 objective when I thought it was top 8. Okay, well, regardless, the high-speed part, big boost. That's going to help us out. We need to obviously add some low and medium speed cornering. We obviously need to add some top speed. I'm not too worried about the other others at this point. I'm not too worried about the DRS, for example, though obviously for Sargent that's going to be a little bit of a factor. So just how fast is Red Bull? Pretty dang fast, top in everything except for engine cooling. Their high-speed cornering is behind us amazingly, but they are nearly top everywhere else, or at least top 2. You can see how Ferrari is a little bit off of it. They are definitely not dominant this season. Aston Martin, right there aerodynamically, maybe top on balance or just behind the Red Bull. So actually it looks like Aston Martin is probably best positioned to challenge right now. But track specific, you could see a day where Red Bull would be on top. You could see a day where Aston Martin would be on top. And you could see a day, because it's the fastest in terms of top speed, where some Ferrari could take some race wins. From that first race, it looked like Mercedes was 4th best. I'm not so sure about that when you look at this. Mercedes, slowest, fastest. I don't think that's the 4th quickest car. I'm shocked that they scored the points they managed to score in that first race. Lewis Hamilton missing Q2 or missing Q3 does not look surprising at this point. It looks surprising that Russell was competitive. Alpine looks a much better car than Mercedes right now. McLaren also looks to be a comfortable midfield team. They have no glaring weaknesses. They also have no major strengths. They've got some good, decent acceleration, decent overall pace, and okay aerodynamically. That, yes, I do think that they are going to be pretty consistently picking up that 8th, 9th, 10th kind of place. Is Haas capable of being that car that's going to pick up those scraps, pick up those points, especially if Mercedes is weaker than expected, but obviously already capable of somehow of scoring points? Quality of driver, maybe. Top speed just behind us, acceleration behind us. DRS effectiveness, though, will keep them in races a bit more. Low speed, medium speed cornering, a little better than us. High speed, a little weaker than us. Sturdy air tolerance just ahead of us. Again, that's going to help them on that DRS portion. Brake cooling, engine cooling, a little bit better. They're on the tail end of total weight, though. That does seem a car that we can and should be competitive with. They have better drivers than what we have in Logan Sargent, so it's going to take a little bit to somehow compete with them. AlphaTauri, meanwhile, slower, but accelerates a bit faster. Weaker in cornering everywhere. We should be beating the AlphaTauri. I'm really surprised that they did what they did in the last race for a while there, but in the end, we did come out ahead of both of them. And finally, the Alfa Romeo, slowest and fastest car. Monaco, they're going to do well with acceleration. Most tracks, they're going to struggle as the slowest. Also, aerodynamically, very weak behind us in everything. Last place in most categories, they just have good acceleration. So outside of Monaco, and that could be a real threat, right? They could score points at Monaco because they have the acceleration, possibly. A couple other tracks could potentially, that acceleration piece could be enough to get them into the points where it's hard to overtake, right? A few street courses, they could threaten, but otherwise they'll be easy to beat most races. I do see 2 cars that we are competitive with and one that we're better than. 7th, not impossible, but I think there's the possibility that every team could score points this season, and Logan Sargent's not going to be great at pulling that off for us, so it's going to be tricky. A high-speed cornering track is absolutely our best friend right now, though, and we're going to need to try to continue to capitalize on that as our greatest strength and not necessarily make up for our weaknesses at the moment. We need to capitalize on that. Kind of missing China as a track at the moment with some really good high-speed cornering. Only one race for the opening of the season, as I very much was keen on seeing where we're at, where we compare, how competitive are we. Now that we've got that sorted out, probably be back to 2 races per episode, most likely for a while. Sophia Flörsch, obviously, not yet competitive, nearly getting lapped by her teammate, has a long ways to go. Short term, Logan Sargent is the anchor for this team and has work to do to keep us as the manager of this team. As that's not the long-term objective, we're going to still try to take things relatively quick. So I think short term, probably 2 race episodes will be the norm for a while, but that is going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.